Hi, my name is Barb Nangle. I'm the founder of Higher Power Coaching and Consulting. I want to welcome you to my podcast, Fragmented to Whole, Life Lessons from 12-Step Recovery.
This is episode 42, Why Take a Daily Inventory? Every night, I write in a gratitude journal at least 10 things for which I'm grateful. This is a practice I started in July of 2000, well before I was in recovery, and I started by writing 5 things every night for which I was grateful, and it transformed my life. If you want to hear more about that, I have an earlier episode on gratitude, and I talk in detail about how it transformed my life, and you might want to listen to it. It's episode 11. In any case, when I came into recovery, that practice of having done a gratitude journal every single night really helped me with easily slipping my nightly inventory in once I got to that point in the steps. And at this point, I write at least 10 things for which I'm grateful because it's so easy to do. Now, in regard to doing a daily inventory, I can tell you that I remember years ago, probably in my 20s, reading the book How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And he talked about how on Saturday nights, he took a weekly inventory. He went back through his week and looked at what happened and thought, how could I have done things better? And I remember at the time, I thought, are you fucking kidding me? That's ridiculous. Like, who's going to do that? What an enormous amount of work that would be. I would never do something like that. Fast forward to 30-something years later, and here I am taking an inventory every single night. Now, here's how I think about doing a nightly inventory. When I did the 12 steps, it was almost like I walked down into the deep, dark, dank basement of my life. I cleared out all of the wreckage that was there. I cleaned it. I sandblasted it. I painted it. I carpeted it. I refurnished it. I redecorated it. And now when I take my nightly inventory, it's like me going down into my nice basement and sweeping it every single night so that it will never get that build up again with all that kind of yuck. It's a place where I can relax. I could invite people over. And if I sweep it every single night, it's always going to be like a nice finished basement where I can hang out if I want to. Whereas if I didn't keep an eye on things like my defects of character, I would let things build up over time because that's what I did before recovery. I tried everything to change my life before recovery. Workshops, work groups, workbooks, retreats, spiritual stuff, therapy, support groups, health, fitness, nutrition programs, you name it. But it wasn't until I got to the 12 steps of recovery that I really learned how to manage my life. So what I do every single night after I write at least 10 things for which I'm grateful, I then go through a series of questions. They start with a recommendation from the AA Big Book called On Retiring, which are suggested as part of the conscious contact with higher power upon retiring every night. After going over those questions, I then add to that list some of my most insidious defects of character. Ask myself, did I act out in those today? For example, did I gossip today? Did I have unrealistic expectations? Was I grandiose? Did I try to take control of things? And then after those, I add some questions from the 10th step suggested inventory questions for my other program. And when I'm done with all of that, I add something else that has to do with humility, because humility has been such a problem for me. I write out the statement, I am no better and no worse than anyone, because that's the definition of humility that best resonates with me. And if for some reason that day there's been a particular person that I've had difficulty with, I'll add them to that statement. So I'll say, I am no better and no worse than anyone, including so-and-so. When I'm done with all that, as a way to focus on the good, not just the bad, I ask myself, what is something loving that I've done for myself today? Typically, it has to do with some kind of self-care, like exercise or taking a nap. After that, I ask myself, what is something new that I did today? And I don't mean something brand new that I've never done ever before in my life. I mean something that is a new behavior that I never could have done before recovery. And it's really easy for me to do that because my life has changed in so many ways since I came into recovery. What's interesting is as stuff has become more integrated, these new healthy patterns have become my new way of living. So sometimes I find myself taking my new life for granted. And this practice really helps me to not take it for granted because I'm paying attention to how I'm different, what new things I'm able to do. I'm very purposefully looking for how would I have handled this in the past and how is this different? What doing this inventory every single night does for me is it helps me to stay out of denial. It helps me to keep the focus on what was my part in things because for me, my greatest gift of recovery was coming to understand my part in things. Which means now that I know what those things are, I can stop fucking doing them. If I did something that day that I didn't realize in the moment, then I can go back and make amends. Often, however, I realize in the moment or right afterwards that I did something. And in that case, I clean it up right then, but I still add it to my inventory. These questions that I ask myself and these defects of character are all written down, but I don't write out the answers if no is the answer. Like if I didn't act out of those defects of character, but if the answer is yes, I absolutely write it down. I write down what the situation was, what my part in it was, and then I follow the instructions from on retiring, which are to ask God's forgiveness and to inquire what corrective measures should be taken. Then I reach out to someone I can help. What I typically do in that case, if there's a person involved in the situation that's come up in the inventory, is that my way of reaching out to someone I can help is I pray for that person. If there isn't a person involved, then I pray for somebody else. If I owe that person some kind of amends and it's appropriate for me to do so via text message, then I'll do that right away. If it's something that I need to do in person or by phone or whatever, I'll do it the next day if at all possible, but I will absolutely do it. I clean that shit up as it comes along. So there's no buildup. This has a lot to do with why I'm able to live happy, joyous, and free most of the time. Because I don't walk around with a lot of shit. I don't walk around with a lot of worry. I'm not worried that I'm going to run into somebody or that they're going to think I'm an asshole. Because sometimes I do act like an asshole. But if I have apologized for whatever is the thing that I did, usually people understand and they get it's nothing personal. I don't mean anything against them and that I'm just trying to do the best I can. So if you are not doing a daily inventory and your life isn't really the way you want it to be, I suggest you consider doing a daily inventory. I have found it to be exceedingly helpful. It's just part of what I do as part of my conscious contact with my higher power every night. I reconnect and plug in before I go to bed. I do that when I wake up too. That is, I make conscious contact when I wake up. I don't go through all these practices I just list. And I also make conscious contact in the middle of the day. But that conscious contact at the end of the day, asking God to come with me on that inventory makes all the difference in the world. So if you're not doing a daily inventory and your life is not what you want it to be, you might consider it. If you feel like you need help with that, feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at barb@higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com. And may you too be happy, joyous, and free. That's it for today. If you like what you've heard here, then you just might be interested in private coaching with me. If that sounds like you, head on over to my website, which is higherpowercoachingandconsulting.com. and click on the contact menu. I'd be happy to schedule a consultation with you to help you make lasting changes in your life, like I've made deep, lasting changes in my life. My ideal client is someone who is ripe for change, but I'll coach anyone who wants to be happy, joyous, and free. So if that's you, shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe so you can be sure to get future episodes of my podcast. Thanks again.